Hi there guys, I hope you have had a good day. Now, oddly enough, Frank Warren wants to work with Eddie Hearn, which is something he's not really enjoyed doing in the past, and it was kind of weird how Chris Jenkins had the opportunity to fight Conor Benn. Chris Jenkins was happy, his team was happy, but ultimately that fight never happened, and maybe it was because they had to work with Matchroom. We don't know at this stage, but Frank Warren is keen to work with Eddie Hearn in a way and a dynamic that means the big fights and the best fights happen. Now, obviously, there could be a potential fight between a Matchroom fighter and a BT Sport fighter in Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. In fact, we hope that is going to happen. But ultimately, this seems to be a bit of a switch around for Frank Warren. We've never heard him talk this openly about happily working with Eddie Hearn. Maybe he believes that his stable is better than Matchroom's, but it seems to be the fact that Matchroom gets a lot more publicity, and those fighters maybe are a bit more well known due to obviously Eddie Hearn pushing them so hard, because Eddie Hearn loves to talk, knows how to talk, and ultimately his fighters reap the benefits of that. So maybe Frank Warren wants to get a little bit more publicity for his fighters by chucking them in with Matchroom fighters who he believes they will beat. He believes that a merger between, not a merger as such, because obviously that would mean that Queensberry and Matchroom become almost one. That's not what it is. What it is making these big fights happen. Now, what Frank Warren said is throw off the shackles. Let's make these big fights happen. Let's do a series between Matchroom fighters and Queensberry promotion fighters, and let's get British boxing back booming again. And that seems to be the belief of Frank Warren, that putting these two fighters together, or fight camps together, that is what can happen. Make the big fights happen, and obviously it does bring a lot more publicity to Queensberry and their fighters, and Frank Warren as well, because Matchroom are doing extremely well after this lockdown. I mean, things haven't been that great for boxing so far, but Matchroom are doing well with Fight Camp. That first week of Fight Camp was brilliant. Egerton versus Cheeseman possibly could be fight of the year. What a fight that was. The undercard, brilliant as well. So boxing is back in a big way, but on Matchroom. Frank Warren obviously has some great fighters, and he knows how to promote fighters. He knows how to get the big fights for his fighters, because he's been doing it for ages. He knows what to do. He's experienced enough in the sport of boxing. He knows all of the tricks. Maybe this is one of those tricks, and it's a good one. Fair play to Frank Warren, because he needs to get more publicity for his fighters, more eyes on Queensberry Promotions and their stable. This is the way to do it. Put on a series with Matchroom. And all of that commercial crap aside, it's also great that there could be some good fights. I mean, I don't understand why Chris Jenkins versus Conor Benn never happened. That was a great fight. Conor Benn was happy with that. Chris Jenkins was happy with that. Why did the fight not happen? I mean, we don't know. Maybe we'll never know. But ultimately, that was a good fight between a Queensberry fighter and a Matchroom fighter. So I don't see why these fights cannot be made when there are different promoters, different TV deals. If the fight should happen, it should happen. If the fighters want it, then make the fight. Now, that being said, these two promotional companies don't necessarily need one another, but they do have good fighters on each platform. So it would be great if they could cross over and fight one another. But still, we are getting good fights from Matchroom Boxing and Sky Sports as well. Hopefully BT Sports and Queensberry Promotions will get some good fights on also. I mean, Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce on Queensberry on BT. Great fight. I cannot wait for that fight. That's going to be possibly one of the best fights of this year. Obviously, there's going to be AJ Pulev and Fury versus Wilder 3, but ultimately that's going to be a great fight. There are many other great fights as well, but ultimately that's just, I mean, the dynamic is brilliant. Two undefeated British heavyweights. European title on the line. So it is a step up for both fighters to that next level from British level, meaning the winner will emerge as European champion and likely get a big fight next, maybe start challenging in some eliminators and start climbing their way up to becoming a mandatory to one of the champions. So that fight is incredibly significant in the future of either fighter and the future of British boxing as well. Is Daniel Dubois the real deal? Is Joe Joyce really as good as his pedigree suggests? That is what is so great about that kind of dynamic. So that is the big marquee fight for Queensberry and BT at the moment. The only one that we can really foresee at this stage, whereas Matchroom have Fight Camp and they are building up to Dillian Whyte versus Povetkin. So there is a worry that the promotional companies duke it out too much, and ultimately that means that their fighters do not get the opportunities that they should. That is the reason why these companies should work together. Whether there are differences, they should put them aside for their fighters, because that is what is important. The fighters are the ones getting in there, taking the blows, taking the risks, the real risks. So they should be rewarded with the fights that they deserve. And sometimes the way to do that is to cross over with promoters and TV networks. Maybe that will have to happen in the future. At the moment, I don't believe it will be something that happens soon, because obviously Matchroom have Fight Camp and Queensberry have some fights they're planning to put on too, building up to Dubois Joyce. So it won't happen this year, but it may happen next year. Frank Warren seems to be keen to put these fights together and work with Matchroom. Oddly enough, because in the past he hasn't been too keen on working with Eddie Hearn. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe if you are new. Thanks, guys.